Hey everyone, today I want to talk about some sort of reflection behind ethics about communication, persuasion, manipulation. I'm very lucky that I'm always around very bright people, and I had the privilege of being in a dinner 2 nights ago with some friends of mine, and we just entered this really incredibly deep conversation about ethics, about persuasion, about letting people. Should we influence on people's decisions? Should we not? How does it work? And how those things are actually taken to our business lives, right? Like a lot of us are marketeers or coaches, so we do have to sort of persuade or guide, or if you're writing a sales letter, the girl that started the conversation and the question, she's actually a copywriter. So this is a really interesting reflection, and I'm super curious to hear what you think about it. My 2 cents on this is that, well, first of all, the separation between communication and persuasion. The way I see communication, we do want to communicate things. We want to put the information out there, and that not necessarily means that we are trying to convince people of taking actions towards something. It might be, of course, all communications do have sort of intention behind that, or at least it should be. You can check my video about setting intention so you can actually get better engagement with people. And what happens about communication is a lot as well. Like, you kind of open the space, right? Like, for interpretation, the person is gonna take their own opinion, their own interpretation. They will take their own results, their own actions according to however they feel about the communication. The way we communicate, it's like we're expressing. Of course, we want the other person to really listen and understand that message. Otherwise, it's not communication. This was like something that I learned in university, and it was a very aha moment for me, which is communication is actually about it's about what the other person understood of it, and not only like what you wanted to communicate. So it doesn't matter how much we think that we're like, oh yes, I made that warning, or I put the message out there. If it's not what people are understanding, that's not really good communication. And then the other person will be kind of have their free will to see how they are actually interacting with you. For persuasion, it would be when we are actually clear on what is the end goal that we would like the other person to actually take actions on, right? Like, we are trying to persuade someone. That means that we are somewhat either convincing, really pushing hard to make them like, okay, buy this, or trying to make them reflect on something, how they are gonna take decision, maybe just trying to inspire them and getting them to act in a certain way, like, right? Like, he can be as well just like cheering about something. Come on, let's go out, let's do this. This is a persuasion thing. The question was if persuasion is ethical or not. I feel like it's more about how we use the techniques of persuasion to see if it's ethical or not. We need to really remember that in the end of the day, everyone has the free will. So it's about what people need and not about what we want to push to them. So this is a really good and important reflection to have the whole time, especially us working with marketing or coaching and things like that. Coaches out there, let's remember one thing. Coaching is about making questions. Ask a lot of questions and let the person also discover themselves what is the best for them to take action on. And a lot of coaches out there are not even like asking good questions, and they're already trying to like show the directions and say what is it that people should do. That's not coaching. So, for example, when I'm with my clients, I do say nowadays, like, what I do is a mix of coaching and strategy, because I do know that I have this very strategical mind and like very like a lot of visions, so I can help with that as well. But I decided to stop being a consultant and actually start with coaching by asking questions to them to make sure that they are actually aligned to their own purpose. They figure out themselves what is important for them, and once we have that, then I can switch a little bit to the strategical part and actually like kind of present alternatives to people to choose what is it that they want. And that's saying, again, the persuasion here would be like, you kind of can, if I want someone to travel with me, if I want people to come to a party or to engage enroll in my program, yes, I can be persuasive. I can show them why they should do this. Like there's a call of action, kind of like very clear, and like the call to action is quite clear, and you know, and you're trying that. But at least I am like this. I also believe that everyone knows when is the right time, and I just want to work as well with people who are in that right moment, you know. So all of you out there, like sales people who are just trying to push and trying to get that sales, it's good to have that reflection up to which point that sales is really what you want to do. If the person is actually really really ready to get your product or service, or are you just like interested in the cash, right? So, and the last one, that's exactly when this persuasion is way too much and it gets kind of like start getting tricky, which is going to manipulation. The way I see manipulation is really when we are pretty much, yes, making someone do something. Sometimes it's clear for them that they are being manipulated to do something, but most of the times they are not. It's really, really subtle. People will be just like using techniques and trying to make you convinced to take you to a path, to make you go to that action, buy something, do something, and maybe you didn't even necessarily understood. And even worse, sometimes manipulation, it's only really about the person that is doing the manipulation. It's about what they want, and it's not really taking care in consideration the other person. And in my opinion, that's like really, really not ethical. I think we should always be doing things like in a contribution mode, like in a service kind of mode, whether it's work or in life. It's good for us to understand that we all are important. So like everyone has a different perspective, and it's not about what we want for someone else. We need to really realize what is that they want themselves. And we know in personal lives, a lot of times that happens, that people might not want for us what is actually good for us, right? Like the best example is like parents, right? Like they always know best what is good for us. Oh yes, you need to study this, you need to go to this career. You cannot travel the world as a digital nomad. What are you doing with your life and stuff like that? So does that mean that they know best? No, that means that they care and everything, but they didn't really necessarily know best. And if we know how to listen to our gut, we can continue doing our things. So it's much better when we actually have the sensibility to really understand what is it really, really good for the person, and let them actually choose if that's good for them or not. So that's my little kind of reflection that I did after those 2 days, after all our conversations about communication, persuasion, and manipulation. Let me know, what do you think? If you have other ways of describing this better than I do. So I would love to look at it in the comments, and stick around that I'm gonna bring more reflections like this, plus really like as well strategies on how we can do things. See you soon.